Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Hola amigos, buenos noches, how have you been? You can tell I watched a lot of TV. And yes, the setup is a little bit different again today. That is because we are officially a month in on quarantine. At least for me, I have been in my house for a whole month now, and can I just say, I have never been more happier. But for some of you who actually do have a social life, you guys are having a really hard time. But I got you. Even though this video is very late, here are my list of suggested movies and series to entertain you for the rest of the days of this lockdown. I tried to shoot this with a cute date night movie theme between you and I, but it ended up looking like a horror movie with a really obese ghost. So here we are. Without further ado, let's get started. Some sci-fi movies to start us off. First of all, we have the movie called Her. It is played by the one and only Academy Award winner Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix plays a guy called Theodore who is actually a lonely and an introvert guy and is currently going through depression because of his divorce. Now, as the story progresses, he buys himself an OS which has a virtual assistant inbuilt in it, which is supposed to evolve and adapt as the time goes. Now, this virtual assistant is actually played by Scarlett Johansson. Yes, that sexy voice is the virtual assistant, and he gets into this relationship with this OS while he speaks about his feelings and everything that he is going through because of his depression. And as the story progresses, they fall in love with each other. Yes, the person and the OS, as expected of Joaquin Phoenix. Even though the story seems a little off when I say it out loud, the performance done by him is just amazing. The way he portrays the depression and the introvertness and how his character evolves at the end of this movie is just amazing. So I strongly recommend you watch this movie. Next movie that we have is called The Moon. Moon is another sci-fi movie which stars Sam Rockwell. Now, Sam Rockwell plays an employee who works for an industry that makes alternative fuel which comes from lunar soil. Now, this industry has a very advanced facility. They require only one person to do all of these activities, starting from harvesting the fuel to actually sending it back to Earth. Hence, he has only this one companion with him called Jerty, like Jarvis. Now, 2 weeks before his comeback from Moon to Earth, he starts getting these hallucinations of a little girl, and then there is this old man. One such hallucination causes a distraught and an accident. Somehow, when he regains his consciousness, he is back into his rover and he remembers nothing. Suspicious of this guy somehow manages to go out of his base location, and he finds a clone of himself who is also doing all of these activities. So I definitely recommend you to watch this movie of how this story evolves. Next movie is called The Wandering Earth. Wandering Earth is actually a Chinese sci-fi movie. It revolves around the storyline that Sun is actually going to engulf Earth in some years. So there are a number of astronauts who are going into space to find out an alternate method to migrate human population. Now, one such astronaut has this 4-year-old son who is actually growing up on Earth with his grandparent. As the story evolves, this kid grows up who is now a teenager, and he goes out on adventures, unintentionally causing a series of accidents which causes a lot of distraught. And now the situation is how to actually save human race from all of this catastrophe and natural disasters. Next up, I have the movie called Train to Busan. Train to Busan is a pretty famous movie. I'm pretty sure many of you have already watched it, so I'm not going to get into details about this movie, but yes, it is definitely one of the very highly recommended movies on this list. Next up, we have the movie called Next Gen. Next Gen is actually an animated sci-fi movie. This movie surrounds a girl whose father has walked out on her and her mother because he lost his job. Now, this girl and her mother are in an estranged relationship. This is one of the big reasons how the story evolves, is because this girl goes to a product launch with her mother to a robotic headquarters, and she feels annoyed because of her mother's ignorance as she runs off and she somehow triggers one of the robots. It is a very well-crafted story between a daughter and a mother in a sci-fi world, so I highly recommend you to watch this. Next up, I have a series called The Altered Carbon. Altered Carbon is a very amazing series on Netflix. As the name suggests, you can actually transport your soul and your memory into a different body. While that means that you can live forever, we have these wealthy people called the Mets, like we have in Hunger Games. Only these people have the means to change their body or to remotely store their consciousness. consciousness. I most definitely recommend this series because imagine if you could actually transport your soul and your memory and consciousness into a whole different body altogether. Next up, comedy. At the very first, we have the movie called Between Two Ferns. Between Two Ferns is one of those movies which is annoyingly dull, yet somehow manages to be amazingly funny. This movie is about a TV host who has this annoying personality and has no qualities whatsoever of an entertaining talk show host. His questions and attitude towards his guest on his talk show are so absurd that it ends up making the whole interview absolutely awkward for the celebrity guest. He becomes this huge internet meme as a talk show host that everybody thinks that he is doing this awkward interviews on purpose. So in order to restore his reputation as a talk show host, he hits the road to interview celebrities and he drags his 2 fern plants throughout the road to do his celebrity interviews in between them. Next up, we have a rom-com called Always Be My Maybe. It is one of the most amazing and successful Asian cast Netflix original. So I definitely recommend you to watch it. Next up, we have a movie called Look Who's Back, and it is none other than Hitler. So the premise of the story is that Hitler comes back to 21st century, and one of the most funniest scenes of this movie is that Hitler sits down to understand what Google is, and the first thing that he Googles is world domination. One of the most amazing things about this movie is that it gives you perspective of the bigger things that actually matter. Next up, we have a Netflix original series called Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Personally, it is one of my all-time favorite TV series. Now, this is a comedy spin-off on a true life event where a madman actually kidnaps 4 girls and captures them in a basement, telling them the entire world has been extinct, nothing exists, and they are lucky to be with this man. After being captured for over a decade, these girls finally come to say the day of light, and Kimmy Schmidt is one of the girls. So this girl now tries to find her way in this new world that we live in, and how she faces off her kidnapper, aka the cult leader, in a trial. Next up, I have a movie called Murder Mystery. Murder Mystery is about a couple that comes across a mysterious murder that happens on their vacation on a cruise. This movie stars Jennifer Aniston, and I'm gonna leave it just there. Watch it because it has Jennifer Aniston in it. Next up, we have an animated series called BoJack Horseman. BoJack once used to be a big sitcom celebrity. However, now that he's older, he is this alcoholic, drug abuse maniac who keeps on getting in trouble and hurts everybody who's around them. I know it sounds super depressing, but trust me, it has a very interesting catch to it once you start watching it. And the last but the best one in the comedy series is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It is one of the best comedy series that you can ever watch. The protagonist of it stars none other than the Andy Samberg. The premise of the story revolves around these detectives of the 99th precinct of Brooklyn on their quest of arresting cartel drug lords or solving some murder mysteries. There has not been a moment where the brilliance of comedy is missing. And one of the most important aspects of this series is the 99th precinct has a gay captain, which brings such a good balance between the comedy and the perspective end of it. I most definitely recommend you to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine even after quarantine. First up, we have a movie called There Will Be Blood. Now, this movie is about a man who, because of turn of events, has to live with an orphan boy. And this boy later on becomes deaf because of a gas blowout. Further down the movie, it is shown that a mysterious man comes who claims to be his half-brother. This new guy considerably becomes closer. However, this impacts very negatively to that little boy. This little boy sets the house on fire with the intention of killing this half-brother. So as the story progresses, character figures that this man is not his half-brother and is only pretending, and he murders him. This is a very interesting storyline, so I definitely recommend you to watch it to see how the character and this little boy emerges. Next up, we have the series called Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders is essentially based on a gangster family post World War II. It is already up to season 6 on Netflix if I am not wrong, and it has got amazing reviews to it, so I definitely recommend you to watch. Next up, we have a series called Crown. As you figured, Crown is about the story of the Queen Elizabeth II. It shows the harsh reality and the politics that goes on behind the royal curtains. It's a historical web drama which covers from her early youth to her reign in the 21st century. The Crown has an overall amazing cinematography, production, casting, acting, acting, and it has been nominated for the Best TV Drama for a Golden Globe Award. Next up, we have the Kominsky Method. Kominsky Method has one of the top star casting with Alan Arkin and Michael Douglas. The story is about an aging acting coach who is not yet ready to say farewell to his twilight years. This series tells a story about him and his longtime agent who help each other tackle the curveballs of life in a place as Los Angeles which values the youth and beauty. This Netflix original is a definite Hollywood pedigree which is created by a multiple Emmy Award winner Chuck Lorre, which I think you may know from Big Bang Theory. Next up, I have a Korean drama called The Itaewon Class. Now this story is about a boy played by Park Seo-joon who lives with his father, who is a very principled and an honorable man. This boy gets in trouble while trying to save another kid from a rich bully. Park Seo-joon did an amazingly outstanding job at depicting the emotion of helplessness and frustration because his father makes a deal with the boss saying that let me resign in return of you not throwing my kid into jail. Later on in the series, it is found out that Park Seo-joon's father is actually killed in a hit and run which was actually done by none other than the boss's son. When Park Seo-joon's character finds this out, he goes to find this boy and assaults him. This lands him into jail for physical assault and attempted murder. Park Seo-joon's character, who is out of the jail after 3 years and is not even a high school graduate, puts his 15-year-long plan into action and opens up his own business to avenge his father. This drama also very successfully brings out important matters of discussion such as transgender and people of color, even though Koreans who find it difficult to gain the citizenship. And at the very end, my favorite genre, thriller. To start us off with a series called Ozark. Ozark is a drama series starring Jason Bateman, who plays a financial accounting guy who moves his family to Ozark. This man is on a move with his family after a money laundering scheme has gone wrong, and in order to save his family, he takes a substantial amount of debt from a Mexican drug lord. In the process of the story, they also show how these circumstances force the family to reconnect together. If you're a fan of Narcos or Al Camino, you're absolutely going to love this series because of the plotline that keeps you glued to your set. Speaking of Jason Bateman, we have a movie called The Gift. This movie is about a married couple that runs into an old acquaintance of them, and this old acquaintance keeps on dropping into their house uninvited, unannounced, and brings these mysterious gifts. I purposefully don't want to get into the storyline because it's an amazing story and I would definitely want you to watch it. Next up, we have Money Heist. Chances are that you have already watched it because it's a very popular TV series that is going on right now on Netflix. It's a Hispanic series about basically money heist. But for the people who are living under the rock, yes, I'm talking to my sister and my brother-in-law. This series is about a guy who calls himself the Professor. His father was a robber who had this idea of a grand money heist which he could not complete. So the Professor forms a team, and each team member has a name of a city, and together they carry out this grand money heist. Disclaimer, you may find it to be a little bit draggy, but if you can look past ahead it has a great gripping story to it and you will definitely like it. Speaking of Spanish, this movie called The Invisible Guest is one of the best thriller movies that I have ever watched. Now this movie starts with an elderly lawyer who is interrogating her client who is involved in a hit and run accident. At the beginning of the movie, the client insists upon being innocent. However, this amazing lawyer skillfully guts out the truth from this client. Now you would think that the protagonist of this movie is this client and how his story revolves. And there lies the catch. I definitely, strongly, from every cell of my body, recommend you to watch this movie. Next up, I have some documentaries that are available on Netflix. The first one being The Pharmacist. Now, this story is about a pharmacist whose son gets killed because of a drug-related shooting, and the documentary proceeds by showing him figuring out his son's killer and how this leads to finding evidence about a big drug scandal. And last up, I have the docu-series called The Evil Genius. Evil Genius is a docu-story based on true story of the most diabolical bank heists ever. I say this is diabolical because later on evidence was found that the robber, Brian Wells, was forced to commit this robbery with a bomb strapped on his neck. It is one of those high-profile crimes, so I definitely recommend you to watch. And unofficially, I also have another docu-series called Trials of Gabriel Fernandez. I personally don't recommend you watching this because it is about child abuse, and I think the child was about 4 years old and he was abused and murdered by his mother and her boyfriend. One of those docuseries that is going to absolutely mess you. But on the other hand, the reason why I mentioned it is because this docuseries is very informative. It has details about child rights and everything that you need to know. Hence, if you want to be informed, I would say go ahead. Other than that, I would recommend you watching the trailer first. And that was my list of suggested movies and series. Those were my personal picks, so I really hope you like them as well. If you found this interesting, be sure to hit that like button. And if you would like this kind of suggested list for Amazon, Hotstar, even YouTube, hit me up in the comment section below and I can do that as well. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I know I have been slacking off a lot. I am very sorry. I am trying to juggle multiple things here, but there is no excuse when it comes to your entertainment. So please be a little more patient with me. I promise to get better at this. With that, I hope you guys are being safe and you have a good time watching all of the movies and series that I recommended on this video. I am Komalika and I will see you next time.